The 39 Steps is one of Alfred Hitchcock's lesser-known works, coming early in his directorial career in 1935. Later loosely remade into North by Northwest, 39 Steps is an early look at the concepts that would come to define Hitchcock's auteur style. My name's John Grozny, and this is How Hitchcock Ropes You In, a video essay on the 39 Steps and the concept of the everyman.
Only things that are creative.
Arguably the thing that makes Hitchcock Hitchcock is the visceral response his work is able to elicit in the audience. The famed director used most elements of filmmaking to emphasize this response. One of the most crucial ingredients was the concept of the everyman. Personified in the 39 Steps' main character, Richard Hannay, played by Robert Donay. Now before we get into analysis, let's take a brief refresh on the plot of the movie itself. Now this video essay is supposed to accompany the movie, and if you haven't seen it, I'd recommend doing so, either via Criterion streaming service, or you can just watch the synopsis in the Drunk Film Student review of this movie, which will be linked in the description below. The 39 Steps is the story of Richard Hannay, a Canadian visiting the UK who unwittingly gets wrapped up in a murder conspiracy consisting of spies, intrigue, deception, and something called the 39 Steps. Hannay makes his way across the UK in an attempt to both evade the police accusing him of murder and solve the mystery at hand. With the help of a woman named Pamela, Hannay exposes the titular MacGuffin, the 39 Steps, and clears his name. The everyman concept, in its simplest form, is a protagonist who could be anyone. Well, in Hitchcock's case, it's a protagonist who could be any man. Any white man. But I digress. The reason for the use of the everyman is that it allows for the audience member to more readily identify with the protagonist. It creates an environment where an audience member can seep deeply into the character, often without realizing it. This gets the audience that much more invested in the movie, its plot, its characters, and its resolution. It creates greater investment and greater reaction.
What one might call pure cinematics, the assembly of film.
The everyman is built upon the foundation established by something called the Kuleshov effect. Now, later on I'll have a video going into more detail on that, but for now, here's the short of it. The effect itself was coined in the 1920s by Soviet artists Lev Kuleshov and Vasyl Pudovkin. Kuleshov and Pudovkin took various takes of this famous actor named Ivan Mushkin, and they stitched them in a progression like this. Now, upon seeing this, the audience raved about the actor's ability to depict such emotions, such hunger, sorrow, joy, only to find out that these three emotional reactions were in fact one blank take of Mushkin. Now what this means is that when given a blank canvas, the audience will bring their own expectations, their emotions, and experiences into the movie. It becomes their story. This technique has largely died out in favor of more method acting, but it's still visible in movies like 1917. If you're curious, we did a video on that one as well. Check it down below. This phenomenon is why Hitchcock used to say that the most important thing an actor can do is to do nothing well. An actor that can maintain the ability to play a convincing role, while giving enough room for the audience to use them as a canvas for their own emotions, is essential to the kind of immersion that Hitchcock wanted to create. It creates a personal relationship with the plot and with the larger world of the film itself. And as Richard Hannay says,
"Well, don't bother about me, I'm nobody."
Hannay is nobody, so that we in turn can be Hannay. Known as the music hall scene, the 6-minute sequence introduces Hannay as well as features the inciting incident, shots ringing out in the venue. Hitchcock uses this sequence to establish 3 key motifs that function to reinforce the everyman concept. The first of these is the use of the camera to integrate both Hannay and the viewing audience into the same narrative spot. Hannay is introduced in the second shot. However, he's only viewed partially. His face is concealed, he lacks identity, he really could be anyone. Hannay's face is not revealed to us in full until a minute later, in shot 9. Once he is integrated into the crowd, he's not shown in isolation, but as a member of the audience. And even then, what is seen of him is minimized, it's mostly shown in passing. Everything in the first half of the scene works to ignore him. In fact, his first line of dialogue's even brushed off by Mr. Memory, the crowd, and even the camera itself.
How far is Winnipeg from Montreal?
What won the cup in 1926?
Cup, Waterloo, football or tea-set?
Football, silly.
Throughout the whole sequence, the camera treats the viewer like another member of the audience. It often works to give us a perspective similar to the one Hannay has. We're shown more views of the crowd as a whole than of the supposed hero of this story. The movie seems to forget he's the protagonist, that it should know him, that it should spend time with him. By giving more focal attention, as well as speaking lines, to the men on stage, it makes us feel as if we're watching Mr. Memory's show rather than watching Richard Hannay, the main character of the new Alfred Hitchcock picture. By shifting our attention away from him and onto the situation at hand, our experience becomes the same as Hannay's, rather than one of watching his experience. It becomes ours. The message is that Hannay is not special. There's no magnetic force requiring anyone to pay attention to him. He's just normal. An observer in a crowd, watching a show. Just like us. Now the second is the action being driven by external forces, and not by Hannay himself. He doesn't initiate the fight, he doesn't shoot the gun, he doesn't even flirt with Annabella, she starts it with him. All of these things happen to him. They force him into the situation of the movie. It again serves to make this journey more realistic. He's not a superhero. He doesn't have a duty to society, he's just a tourist. And due to circumstances beyond his control, he's forced into an extraordinary situation.
Well, there we are.
May I come home, monsieur?
What's the idea?
Well, I like to.
Well, it's your funeral.
A brilliant facet of Hitchcock's approach to the everyman is tying the role into our voice as a real-world audience member, and this is the third thing here. Hitch repeatedly uses Hannay to point out inconsistencies or unbelievable occurrences within the world of the movie. This process allows for us to transform our disbelief in the plot into identity and belief in Hannay.
Beautiful, mysterious woman pursued by gunmen. Sounds like a spy story.
It's exactly what it is.
Now I suppose you've come over here to dig up some great, big state secret.
When he's first hearing the spy plot, for instance, he remarks how unbelievable and ridiculous it is, something we would. By speaking aloud our doubts as audience members, immersion remains intact because the things that wouldn't hold up in our world don't hold up in this world either. Later in the movie, when it becomes Hannay's turn to explain the now very real spy plot, it again gets called out as ridiculous.
I see. Now I suppose they're waiting there as good as gold for a copper to come and arrest them.
That's quite true. Listen. They're spies, foreigners. They've murdered a woman in my flat and now they're waiting for me.
Oh, come on.
But this time, however, we've been through the events with Hannay. We know that they're true, and this drives us to identify with him. When he attempts to explain the spy plot to the milkman, who doesn't believe him, and then the sheriff, who promptly tries to arrest him, our belief in the plot is being questioned by other characters in the movie's world. It distances us from them, closens us to Hannay. This frustrates us. We know that he's telling the truth. We've seen it.
You see, I had to get away from the theater quickly. There were two men there who wanted to kill me.
Really, you should be more careful in choosing your gentleman friends.
Now later in the movie, when Hannay sits at a dinner with the crofter and his wife, something interesting happens as well. Hannay's hinting to the wife about his secret in a close-up shot after she spies a newspaper. Now this is a scene common to many movies. However, it's impractical in real life. The person right next to you would hear you. So let's see how Hitchcock handles it.
And from worldly things unto thee.
Now the movie also reinforces our becoming Hannay by diminishing the importance of his actual in-movie or diegetic identity. Several times throughout the movie, Hannay switches his name, or he has it switched or mistaken to something similar. He tells the sheriff that his name's Henry, he gets called Hopkins, Hammond, Henry, Hannay. There's no solid identity attached to him, allowing our identity to fuse with Robert Donay's portrayal of this ordinary man. The 39 Steps is a look at the early motifs and themes and concepts that would come to define a Hitchcockian experience and a Hitchcock movie. Chief among these is the concept of the everyman, and here it's on full display. Without the 39 Steps, and without Richard Hannay, we have no George Kaplan, no Roger Thornhill. Even after the 86-minute journey we've gone on with Richard Hannay, after all we experienced, what do we really know about him? We know he's possibly a tourist from Canada, but even that's not necessarily proven true. He's simply a man on an adventure. Richard Hannay's no one. He is an ordinary man. He is every man. This is our first real video essay on this channel, and if it's content that you liked, please, like, subscribe, leave a comment telling us so, and we'll be sure to make more. Special thanks to Jennifer Bell for script editing and helping me write this thing. My partner Travis Conte for producing it, and a lot of the resources came from my studies at Michigan State with Professor Bill Vincent, so a big thank you to him as well. That's all I got for you. Thanks so much.